Well, thanks for joining in today again to the Purchasing Made Personal podcast. Today we have a fun one. We're kind of going to take a step back from any advanced topics or anything like that and really hit Cooperatives 101, right? And to do that today, we've got another great guest from Tips. Allison, I'll let you introduce yourself and we'll get started there.
Yes, hi, I'm Allison Ames York. I am the Regional Vice President of Sales for Texas. I've been with TIPS since 2021. It's been a while and just love working with this cooperative and love sharing all of the ways that we can support our vendors and members. So thanks for having me on today, Michael.
Yeah, it's gonna be great. And Ames York, recently
Yes,
married.
yes,
So
recently
that's
married.
exciting. That's very exciting.
Kind of new to
Congratulations.
say, so far.
Yes,
For sure.
congratulations on that. So, baselines here, and this is just for anyone who maybe, got hired into the purchasing office or maybe,
Mhm.
fresh into public procurement, right? What exactly, Allison, is a purchasing cooperative?
Sure. At a high level, Michael, it's a way for public entities like schools, cities, counties to purchase goods and services without having to run their own bid every single time. So we handle that competitive solicitation up front. We'll go out to bid, evaluate vendors, award contracts that meet the procurement requirements. And then
Mhm.
in turn, members can use those contracts directly. So that means our members are not skipping anything in the procurement process. It's already been done. So that solicitation evaluations, awarding, all that happens at the cooperative level, and then members are able to step into those contracts and use them compliantly. So in real life, what does that mean? That
Yeah.
means instead of a district spending 60 to 90 days writing their own, specs, advertising, answering questions, and evaluating proposals, they can access a contract that has already gone through that entire process. And we've worked with districts where they were completely stuck waiting on procurement timelines. And once they found out and understood that they could legally use TIPS, competitive contracts, they were able to move forward almost, if not immediately. So a huge, huge help for our public entity members.
Right, exactly, and that's the thing, and so TIPS as a division of Region 8, right, Education Services,
Yes.
we are a public agency, and we are completing the RFP, and that way the other agencies who are using the program can do that, right. So why were cooperatives created, and so what's the why behind that, Allison?
The why behind that, they were created out of a need for that efficiency in the process, in the procurement, process. Um, Public entities have to follow, as we all know, those strict procurement, requirements, but they also need to be able to move projects forward in a timely way. So it's kind of a catch 22 sometimes, So running
Yeah.
that full bid process repeatedly takes so much time and so much coordination and a lot of resources. And cooperatives were created, to streamline that process while still maintaining compliance. So we work with, organizations of all sizes and even teams with strong procurement departments, large procurement departments can get slowed down by timelines. So a cooperative gives them a way to move faster, whatever size they are, without sacrificing that compliance. So it's also reducing duplication. Instead of running every entity running that same bid over and over again, it kind of avoids that too. So more multi-prong, there, but that's that in a nutshell why we exist.
Oh, yeah, and there's so many analytics out there of how much does it cost to go to
Mhm.
RFP?
Oh,
How much time does it take? And so that's you hit the nail on the head, right? That's why
mhm.
we
Yeah.
wanted you on to help explain this topic is because we're here to do one thing as public agencies across the country, whether that's
Mhm.
education, government, we're kind of getting ahead of ourselves, right? But we're here to protect the public dollar.
Yes, and
And
Wake
as
up thinking about this stuff, so
oh,
it's
we do, and sometimes we don't sleep thinking about this stuff,
Yes.
right? But we are here to protect the public dollar
Mhm.
and, to help, protect the agencies that serve the public, okay? But, when it gets bogged down and when it does this, and as frustrating as the competitive bid process may be, right?
Mhm.
That was created to get some accountability on where public dollars were going out, right? For the services being performed on public buildings or on, public schools or you name it, right? So the point is this I'm trying to make is yes, all public dollars need to be accountable and need to do so according to the letter of the law.
Yes.
It's just how can we incorporate cooperatives, other means of procurement, right? Other means of any type of streamline to help the purchasing and the public agencies do their job better, right?
Yes, exactly.
So that's what we're doing, why we're doing it, and those are the agencies that know what's happening, kind of behind the scenes, so to speak. So for those newbies, right, for the people who are, we'll just say, valiantly jumping into the public sector, right? What is happening behind the scenes with the TIPS contract, with the cooperative contract, right? What is going on, right?
Well, I can assure you a whole lot. So it mirrors a full
Yeah.
procurement process. It's just centralized, if that makes sense. So
Mhm.
behind the scenes, it's not simplified. It's actually very detailed. There are formal solicitations, evaluations, committees, scoring, documentation, and compliance reviews. And the difference is we're doing that one time at a high level instead of every entity repeating it. So our members are going to benefit from that very robust process without having to manage it themselves. And that is just such a lifesaver and it just clears that path for them to focus on other areas in their organization, honestly.
Absolutely. One thing we hear a lot sometimes when agencies are just beginning to adopt this idea of a cooperative is, well, that's the procurement officer's job. Well,
Mhm.
no, it's not. The procurement
Well,
officer's job is to prep the purchases for audit. Okay. And
mhm.
so, yes, they're still collecting all their due diligence and everything like that. And it's just allowing them to do that more efficiently. Right.
Yeah,
Everyone talks about public spending getting defunded
yeah,
and we're stretching for things. However, there's still a lot of things that need to be purchased and purchased to the letter of the law. And
right,
that's where the better we can make the business office, procurement office, what this varies by agency, right? The better we can make that process, the better we're going to be able to do that for the
right.
public. So,
Totally.
um rolling back a little bit, okay? Not really rolling back, but so the types of agencies, right, who
Mhm.
can use a cooperative are blank.
So
Fill that in, Allison, real quick.
we can work with any public entity that has to go out to bid. So school districts, cities, counties, colleges, hospitals, you name it.
And, some two things on that would be, you know, there's a lot of agencies out there that people don't even realize could be agencies, right?
Mhm.
Or like you mentioned, I think hospitals, right? A lot
Yes.
of those are municipality run hospitals or charity run
Yeah.
hospitals, right? Like St. Jude's or something like that,
Mhm.
or even when you get into what is technically a public agency, well, charter and private schools are still required to go out to bid, or even for me in my territory in kind of the central United States is the Native American tribes. Even though they're regulated and separate, they still hold themselves to their own accountability and want to use a competitive bid situation. So that's the question for vendors who are wondering who might qualify to use their own tips contract. That's what I always say is, are they going out to bid for a competitively sealed component? And is that being paid for by some type of public funding? Public
Yes.
funding can run the gambit because now even nonprofits, right? The American
Mhm.
Red Cross is a member of TIPS now.
Yes.
So, Yeah, that's who all is using it, right? So, uh, that's very easy to kind of narrow down very
Yeah.
quickly is where the money's coming from, and are they spending their own money, or is it the public's dollar? What all have they been buying through the tips contracts,
Oh
right?
gosh, a wide range, from commodities to complex services and construction. So we've seen districts use our contracts for everything from paper to, basic classroom furniture, all the way up to multi-million dollar construction projects like roofing, HVAC upgrades, athletic facilities. It's not
Yep.
just small purchases, but, they scale across the board. So we see
Yeah.
everything.
And we can see that, the paper's a great example.
Yeah.
Another one is like auto parts or even
Mhm.
like office supplies or anything to where, purchasing laws vary slightly by state, right? But
Yes.
pretty much everyone in the union is following this same vein, right?
Right.
But there's some states out there where, okay, maybe your threshold could be, $25,000 before
Mhm.
you have to go out to competitive bid. In some states, it's 50. In some states, it's 5,000, right? But there's this aggregate spend component to where maybe you've spent $1,000 in one PO. And in that same fiscal year, you might have another purchase for office supplies or whatever, micro purchases that don't necessarily require to go to bid. But eventually, you're going to hit this fiscal year threshold in aggregate spend that now you've spent $50,000 on one vendor.
Yeah.
And now that has to be protected moving forward from a competitive solicitation. I've seen a
Exactly.
lot of agencies, you talk about preemptive and maybe not purchasing at that threshold or things like
Yeah.
that, but they know as the fiscal year progresses,
They're
okay, I'm
going.
going to hit my threshold easy with this vendor. We need to go ahead and automatically include them into the tip
Yeah.
solicitation, right? And it's that type of forward thinking that makes a great purchaser, right?
Yes.
It's also the lessons that people learn when Mr. Auditor may come a knocking,
Yes.
right?
Yes.
And that's we'll get into that in a minute, right?
Yeah.
Of because everything tips does, I always say, is audit focused, right? Sure, you want to buy your lighting system. Sure, you want to buy your office supplies. Sure, you want to buy whatever you want to buy right now. Okay, we can get that purchase going. But some state, 5, 7, 10 years down the road is some of those limitations on audits where they can come and investigate the public dollar.
Mhm.
So we want to get it all headed
Yeah.
the right direction from day one, you know?
Right. And when you use tips, you have all of the, your audit trail right there, your due
Yep,
diligence documents at your fingertips. Just lots of good tools to help stay on track as well. So,
absolutely. So, we're transitioning into this next question. We already mentioned the audit protection, right?
uh
That's my phrase is audit protection of
yes.
getting it in the row, preemptively thinking 7 years down the road if the auditors ever want to look at it, right? But what are some other benefits that you're seeing, Allison, by using a tips contract?
Yeah. Some other benefits, and we've kind of mentioned some of them already, but just that savings of your time,
Yes.
compliance, our vetted vendors. And one of the biggest things I hear is relief. I mean, we hear that every day. People are trying to do things the right way, but the process can slow them down. And when they realize that they can save months of time and still be compliant, it changes how they operate. And in this day and age, and in all parts of no matter what part you are in, if you're with a school or a city, relief is a huge factor and benefit there. So,
Yes.
we hear that on the daily. So I think that's
Oh, yeah.
important to mention.
Especially in the purchasing department and, you know, where peace of mind is at a premium. And oftentimes the people you have to report to, be it board of education, superintendent, the
Mhm.
mayor's office, right? Peace of mind is not coming downhill,
Yeah,
right?
and when you're living under
So,
a microscope, it's
exactly. Not to mention, our favorite people out there, the local press, right? I
yes,
mean, just you
and
name it.
Facebook.
Peace of mind is at a premium, and when we can help achieve that through a cooperative purchase, That's probably one of the most rewarding things that we do, Allison. I'm
Oh,
sure
yeah.
you agree.
I
So,
agree 100%.
yeah. Um, so you mentioned that 60 to 90-day window, right?
Mhm.
Just very quickly. And again, this is created for um, people new to cooperative purchasing,
Yeah.
people new to public procurement. So, okay, let's elaborate, I guess is the best way to
Okay.
say that. So, what what is happening or how is it happening that we're saving the benefit of like this time saving thing, right? Because that's one thing I see all the time that people call me and they get in like, I've been in this position for 3 months, I'm now
Yeah.
buried in work, and what is this tips contract I need to know quick, right?
Yeah.
So what is the elaborate on the time aspects of things, right?
Okay. Well, first of all, compliance is built into the contract up front. So, a deeper example of that is the key is the member is not skipping steps. They're leveraging a process that's already been done correctly. So, instead of them having to start at step one, they're stepping into a fully compliant contract and moving straight to execution. So, that I think is probably the biggest way I see, saving time, the relief factor, the
Yep.
compliance factor, all of those things work into those. So,
Yeah, here's some things. And this happens to our agents at
mhm.
tips as well.
Yeah.
There are so many ways a bid can go sideways.
Yes.
Okay. Just off the top of my head is not enough responders, right?
Right.
Most agencies need at least three or sealed proposals to make that a qualified bid. Could be more in your state. I've seen as many as five required,
Yeah.
right? It could be contested. Of did you advertise this where the public could see it, and now all the qualified vendors. If a vendor shows up at a board meeting and says we were not notified of this. It's like, okay, well now, okay, maybe we didn't advertise where we used to, or but now you got to prove that, and it's a delay, right? All that stuff. Um, Possibly, we get things where the scope of work changes either before the bid closes,
Mhm.
right? Or at down the line with the then selected vendor, and there's so many change orders.
Yeah.
The competitive bid almost seems unfair,
Right.
and then you don't want to ever blacklist vendors, but man, sometimes we might feel that way because it's like, okay, you came in at 25% cheaper, but now because of all these change orders that probably could have been
Yeah.
predicted, you've ended up now way past the rest of
You're
the pack, right? And that's just not fair business practices, right?
no.
So now, and this happens to tips, right? There's some
Mhm.
times where we don't even have enough responders for some niche category,
Right.
right? Or whatever. I'm thinking of one where it was we had to kind of pull some resources and re-encourage some people to
Mhm.
respond to vending machines, right?
Yeah.
It happens all the time.
Yeah.
Now, once it's a live contract, once it's awarded, it's gone to our board meeting, and more on that in another date, right? But once it's on the TIPS website and that vendor has a TIPS vendor profile, all of the headache that could go wrong
Mhm.
is removed. We
Right.
got it done. We got them awarded. We got them to respond. They responded. A scoring evaluation allowed them to be scored an appropriate measure to where they can now hold a cooperative contract. It's
Yes.
so much of for me, it's the worry of not only how long is this going to take, but what could go
Yeah.
wrong to make us start over.
Right.
And then you're not at 90, you're at 180.
Yeah.
And if it fails twice in a row, which is more common than we like to admit,
Yeah.
you're at 270 days before so
Yeah.
yeah, that's a
And and
huge advantage.
and from the vendor's perspective, if they're responding to multiple RFPs just for a maybe, they're
Yes.
also spending time, money, resources to just get a maybe or not anything at all. So this just really helps everyone, helps both sides.
Oh,
For
yes,
sure.
absolutely.
Um,
So we can pat ourselves on the back all day long,
yes.
right? Um, but w you're out in the field, I'm out in the
Mhm.
field. What are some of the common hesitations that you might come across with cooperative purchasing and tips?
Yeah. Um, I think one of them being that cooperatives eliminate, competition or reduce control. We hear a lot that it's not just it's just not accurate, but the
Right.
competition happens during the solicitation.
Hmm.
After that, members still control their scope, their pricing, their discussions, and their vendor selection. It'll actually give them flexibility while they're still staying compliant. So I think the biggest misconception or confusion part may be that they don't have the same level of control anymore,
Hmm.
but they actually do, on that.
Right. And with the tips contract, based on how we do it, not all cooperative models are the same, and not all cooperative models are wrong. Don't misconstrue this, but for tips at least,
Mhm.
ours becomes a do not exceed price.
Yes.
So I have several vendors or and members who say, okay, yes, that's the minimum discount that could be offered through the contract. However, based on quantity, based on just vendor relationships, right? Based on their ability to go lower than the contracted minimum, right? That happens all the time. And that's you still have the power at your agency level to negotiate a better price. And on the price points of things, tips gives you a better starting point, right? And sometimes that is the max starting point, right? It varies.
Mhm.
Again, we're selling over 200 categories and vendors galore in all of those types of commodities. So um, that's very powerful.
It is.
So so any other hesitations that you might want to add, Allison? Or
Well, I would like to say when, a member may be hesitant to, utilize a cooperative, utilize tips, start small if you're not used to using cooperative contracts. Start small and build that comfort. Use our team. I usually tell people you don't have to overhaul your entire process, overnight. Pick a project, or a purchase and use one of our contracts and see how it works. See the relief you actually get. And almost every single time, that first experience, it builds confidence and we see them, really starting to utilize the cooperative more. So,
absolutely. Okay. So I love stories and we're on the road a lot, right? And we're always
yeah.
meeting someone new. And so can you think of any examples of, we've mentioned all the good things and we mentioned that it happens, but any kind of real world examples that you might want to share based on, who you're working with personally on why it's streamlining, how it's helping, the process they're in. What do you got for us today, Allison?
Well, just one example that comes to mind, and this is not just one example, it's a lot of the members that we work with, but a specific district out in West Texas, they had a critical need and couldn't wait months for a bid cycle. And by using our contracts, they were able to just move forward within weeks instead of losing an entire semester. And that kind of timing difference really matters, especially in education when you're being, you have a board, you have parents on Facebook, you have all of these people under your watch. Cities, counties, not the same thing too, but that really, I've seen that over and over again. And I know you have too. And that's just
Oh
one
yeah.
thing that pops up to me immediately. Um,
Here's how crazy it can be, because I've got an example too. There was an agency in California, right? And their server crashed due to a natural disaster. Okay.
okay.
So, the server was offsite. The city was fine, but because of where their server was based, they had problems and quick.
Yeah.
Okay. But because that their city didn't have the disaster based on how it was working out, the emergency procurement wasn't going to be inactivated, right? Their city legal team did want them to go out to bid to get their cloud back up and going. Well, in today's world, what are you without file share and saving and all their systems? They couldn't, all this stuff was down. and their
Yeah.
legal was insisting on using a competitive bid to then restore it. They did not want to use the emergency spending protocols, for lack of better words, right?
Yeah.
So then they were not members of TIPS. They knew, uh, because of the incumbent, that they did require a traditional bid, right? They wanted
Mhm.
them to just fix it and then maintain this vendors, but things happen, right? So, but the vendor did have a TIPS contract. So during Thanksgiving break, okay, this is Thanksgiving of 2024. I'll never forget it. Thanksgiving break is when this happened. By December 5th, while everyone was doing holidays, while everyone was out, and in that state, they like the board members to sign off on joining cooperative. There's all different means of joining, right? But by December 5th, that they had not only joined TIPS, they had not only sealed the bid with the cloud provider,
Mhm.
they were back up and running.
Wow.
So within a week of what should have taken 90 days, the
Yeah.
traditional route, we were able to get them back up and running, and they weren't even a member of TIPS, right?
Wow.
So that's how fast it could be. That's how streamlined seems to be the word of the day here, that it
Yes.
can be.
Love
So
stories like that, and we
that's
hear we
just
see them every day. Yeah.
it's the stuff that sticks with you,
Yeah.
you know,
Yeah.
and yeah, we're here to help serve and do that, but I think what kinda is great about the culture at TIPS is
Yeah.
we all like doing it. It's
Yeah,
not
it is.
it's not the job, so to speak. Of course,
Right.
it's what we're doing, but like you said, there are days where I wake up thinking about this. There are
Yeah.
nights where I don't go to bed because I'm thinking about some problem that a
Yes.
district in Kansas might be having right now, or you name it, right?
Exactly.
That's what we
Exactly.
live to do, and I love the culture here. So,
Yeah. Me too.
okay, now with the TIPS program managers, right?
Yes. Mhm.
I'm a program manager. You are now VP of Texas, ex program manager, but now
Yes.
running the Texas program managers. So how do they specifically, in their role, help navigate the TIPS procurement process?
Okay. Well, in a nutshell, hands-on guidance and support. Our program managers, they're in the field every day. I know you're on the road all the time, and
Yes.
they're constantly, helping members understand how to use the contracts correctly, connecting them, making with the contracts, making sure documentation is in place. And, it's not just TIPS isn't just a contract, a membership. It's ongoing support. We look at it as a partnership, and our program managers are all, how, passionate we are right now. That is how all of our whole team is. And just so blessed to have, you mentioned culture, just so blessed to have that because you can tell, people can tell. They're always telling us, "Oh, you answer the phone." You know,
Yes.
we have so many people to support that, no one's ever left out there hanging. So,
Yeah. It's a great way to do it. In a
yeah.
nutshell, from my perspective of how I view myself on how I'm fitting into the procurement puzzle, so to speak, is the program managers at TIPS are going to be the subject matter experts,
Yes.
right? Subject matter expert on what? Just simply yes. Okay.
Mhm.
If
Yeah.
it's a question regarding tips, if it's a question regarding purchasing in general, most of us have the background in that. I came from Medicare. You came from others. Everyone came from somewhere, right?
Yes.
We've got enough relationships under our belt to where
Here.
if we don't know it, we know someone who does,
Somebody
right?
does.
But regarding the tips part,
Yeah.
I mean, you look at our RFPs, back to that due diligence, they end up being, on average, there's 4 documents in place from the original solicitation to the contract. And on average, those things are 180 to, I think the longest one I ever saw was 280 pages. Okay, so we'll just roughly say 200 pages each. Okay, that's a lot of documentation to review, right? Whether you're new to tips or whether you just want to make sure that it's a valid situation for your state or anything regarding that, right? And
Yeah.
I try not to be pushy, right? My goal is
Yeah.
to say, look, this is how we competitively solicit the contract. Here's all the information. And I can, if you have a question regarding a certain statute or having a question regarding a certain process or where was the scoring and evaluation done, I know those back and forth, right?
Yeah.
Okay, let's go quickly here to page 190, whatever. Okay. And we're here to help navigate that
Yes.
and give you the peace of mind, right? And
Yes.
show you how, uh, based on how we procured it, how that matches up with your procurement needs.
Right.
Okay. That's where we really come in and shine. And then on the backside of that is the support that's there starts at the program manager. Okay. And we have a whole team of purchase order people. We have a whole team of legal teams in house that help write the RFPs and score and evaluate them. And if you needed to talk to the board based on how we, I had a question the other day of how did we go about and approve the vendor at the board meeting and get the board
Yeah.
minutes. You name the questions, we've
Yeah.
probably come across it already.
Yeah.
And we're
I
here
agree.
to help explain the process so that you could then utilize and streamline yours. Right.
Right. Right.
So any other comments on that, Allison, on what
Well,
we're
I
doing as
think
program
you
managers?
I
Yeah.
think you just said it best earlier when you said relationship and you talked about, how we all came from different backgrounds. And I think that's one thing that our team, both internal and our program managers and executives, we are. It's all about relationship, partnership. We are out looking for the best for our members and vendors, and I think that word has always been my mantra throughout my whole career is relationship, and when we can partner with these public entities and vendors, it's beautiful. It's a wonderful thing.
Yep.
So you hit the nail
That's
on the
great.
head with that word. So
Thanks, Allison. So, okay, for listeners out there who want to learn more about cooperative purchasing or explore tips contracts, or
mhm.
what would you suggest? I mean, this is just kind of an introductory conversation. What are the next steps for them to then go find more about the tips contract?
Yeah, I say reach out and explore with us, with your program manager or with myself. The best thing you can do is just start a conversation. Ask questions, look at what contracts are available, see where it might fit into your current process. There's no pressure from us. It's just about understanding your options, and that's what we want everyone to know is you have options. Our members have options. And so we just want to make sure you have all of the information. So just starting off with a call, hop on a Teams, meeting and kind of go over how we can serve you better and help streamline things, for your team as well.
Right. Well, Allison, we can't thank you enough. Looking forward to seeing where this goes and
Yes.
what all the territories do. Thank you so much for coming on and giving the kind of the introductions to tips and cooperative purchasing. We really do appreciate it.
At the end of the
Um,
day, Michael, it's just about making purchasing easier without
that's
sacrificing
exactly right.
compliance and giving, organizations more time to focus on serving their communities. So I appreciate it.
Absolutely. Yes, we loved having you. Well, that's going to conclude the podcast for today. If you want to be a part of tips and you've listened this long, join us. It's absolutely free to utilize our contracts, and you can join the over 14,000 agencies using us across the country to procure their services, their commodities, their construction, you name it, they're using it. And if you want to become a vendor, that is done very easily by responding to one of our competitively sealed bids. So for any of that, reach out to me, reach out to your program manager. We'd love to have you. Thank you for joining the podcast where we make purchasing personal.